This episode is brought to you by Training House. Visit traininghouse.shop for all your nutrition needs. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the podcast where these two guys sit down and talk to you about the sport of triathlon. It is obviously talking triathlon. My name is Tim Ford. That is James Bale. Jimbo, how you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad, mate. I'm coming down off that Olympic high. I'm still got the Olympics on, nigh on 24/7 at the moment, catching up on all the events and watching various things happen on the TV, but no longer in that sort of pressure cooker arena and chasing ourselves around Paris to try and get to and from events and across the city. So it's quite nice to get a bit of rest and relaxation alongside it. How are you,
So
man?
I'm doing well, mate. But before we get to me, I just like, where's your head at? How are you feeling in yourself? Are you feeling good about yourself? You feeling a bit better? You weren't great last time.
No, I'm back in the game now. I processed all that I needed to process, and yeah, I think the mixed team relay was a astounding way to get over the disappointment of watching Hayden come not quite complete what he tried to complete. But
Well, just because you brought it up and you weren't feeling too good last week, I thought now's the perfect opportunity for me to have a bit of a gloat because guess who picked the winners? Who was right and
yeah,
who
you
was
nailed it. You nailed it. And
wrong?
I think I did a bit of a mea culpa last week, but to reiterate that. I was wholly wrong on my not only my picks but my justification and reasons for those picks. And yeah, it's annoying because it was in the women's race, it wasn't that close to being correct, but in the men's race, I
It's very
feel like
close.
it was oh so fucking close to coming the right way. And I think I've said this to you in the week, but I think the reason I felt so down is because it was so close that I'd already allowed myself that flood of endorphins that you get when something really good happens. And so I was already up there feeling high as a kite, and suddenly it was all gone. It was like a come down.
I will be honest. I think you carrying on in the middle of the race like you did is probably why I ended up celebrating as much as I did when Alex eventually won the thing. Because
Yeah, yeah,
I was
without
ju
question.
I was jumping around on the street. Going, oh shit. But the other little Olympic chestnut that I love is like it wouldn't be like James Bale to celebrate a little bit early, where the first time that Team GB went above Australia in the medal tally, you just sent me a screenshot being like, suck it. And I think that by the time that happened, and then I woke up, Australia had already overtaken you
They were
guys
already
again.
back. Yeah, and now you're currently in the middle of having the best Olympics you've ever had, and you're
The
in
best ever.
third in the medal table,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, exactly. We have the most gold medals we've ever won at a games. So, I mean, I don't want to say how many because it could have changed since I woke up. But no, I mean, it's so good, mate. It's a wonderful Olympics. I know that there's been a lot of, especially in the triathlon realm, a lot of stuff around it in terms of things. But I mean, I'm still just so high on it. I really, really enjoyed being there, and despite what some people on YouTube think, I really do believe, understand, or get now why the Olympics is the pinnacle of our sport. Like it was just.
Yeah, it was something very special, wasn't it? It really was. It was something very special to be in and around and partially involved in, as little as our involvement was.
I was talking to Jamie Riddle this week, who was he 25th, but Jamie was telling me that he actually did a fair bit of the run next to Doreen Connex, and he said you could feel, you could actually physically feel the force of support. Like he said, it was like it was a physical force. I was like, mate, that is so cool. Like so,
Yeah.
nah, it was
I've
awesome.
been I've been the last 3 days, it's just been every single night it's been velodrome time, track racing. Because I love the track racing. Don't tell triathlon, but my favorite aspect of the Olympics is always the track.
Yeah.
Because I just love watching those bikes go round and round and round. And I've never been to a velodrome while there's a competition taking place, but I can only imagine the kind of atmosphere they've got going in there because they start with a disco every day. So they black it out and they get all the lights going around and then they get the crowd all hyped up. And the atmosphere in there must just be off the fucking scale. And did you see the men's team pursuit final?
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it was a good one.
It was.
Um,
And it was so close. I mean, irrespective of who won, it would have been so cool to see it play out rather than it to end on that last lap with them slipping off the saddle.
We last night the other one that I found really exciting was in the canoeing, the rowing. I was watching the K4 500 meters, and the Australian, it was the Spaniards were leading for like 400 of the 500 meters, and the Germans and Australians ended up in like a literal sprint finish. There was a photo finish. Germans won by 0.04 of a second or something. And for a guy who doesn't particularly care about paddling, edge
Oh, yeah.
edge of your seat stuff, mate. Like
Yeah.
you do get those little flashes of. I mean, the other one that I watched, my dad, like he gets these things in his head where he's like, mate, you need to watch this thing, and I very rarely listen. I'm like, yeah, okay, dad. Like, but this week he's been like, have you watched the mixed 4x400 meter relay on the track? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll check it. He's like, no, Tim, trust me, watch this event. I'm like, yeah, okay. And for like 3 days, he's like, have you watched it? Have you watched it? Have you watched? So fucking hell, all right. I sat down and watched it. And for the first three, 1,200 meters, it's just America, Team USA out the front, like quite comfortably. I'm like, why the fuck am I watching this? Like, I don't give a shit about this. And then the Dutch woman Bowl just gets on this last lap and with about 100 meters to go, just goes fucking into hyperdrive, runs through the field and wins the race. And I was like, I get why dad wanted me to watch this.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
That's the thing. The thing about this amazing coming together of all these nations, all these sports in every 4 years is that you find yourself watching sports you don't watch or know anything about. And thoroughly for that moment, however long that moment is, you invest every ounce of your support or emotion or like just your feeling into it. And it's great fun.
Yeah. Well, look, if you enjoy having a good time and investing in things, you can head to patreon.com/, talking triathlon, where you can invest in this podcast. I had a few new signups this week, so thank you and welcome to our new
Oh,
patrons. You
so we're
get a
deep into the 70s now, are we?
deeper, I think so. Yeah, probably. You get access to our WhatsApp group, bonus content, Facebook group, Strava group, tipping league, all those things. The WhatsApp group, mate. There was again another person shared a screenshot after the mixed team relay on well Monday. It was Tuesday, whatever day it was, and there was like 600 and something messages in the
Yeah.
group.
And he must have woken up somewhere and been like, and I think the screenshot said, has there been an event on?
I know, and then obviously the WhatsApp group has been on fire since the thing we are about to talk about, and I think we start there this week, James. It is obviously a very from the high of highs of the Olympics over the last week to suddenly a very low low. The winner of Ironman Texas now, Tomas Rodriguez. What's his last name?
Tomas Rodriguez Hernandez has been provisionally suspended from triathlon competition under anti-doping rules following his astonishing victory at Ironman Texas earlier in the year. He absolutely smashed everyone in Texas, didn't he? With a 2:34:14 marathon. He ran away from Patrick Lang like it was nothing. And then he was set to go to challenge Roth with a hefty financial bonus last month to try and break the 2:30 marathon. But he had to withdraw from that race at the time, citing personal reasons.
Moonhouse? Or was it something else?
Yeah, something like that. Uh, citing personal reasons. And then on Tuesday, the 6th of August, the news came out the International Testing Agency that Rodriguez Hernandez had returned an adverse analytical finding for clomiphene, S4 hormone, and metabolic modulators. The sample was collected during an in-competition test at Ironman Texas on April 27th, which was my birthday. Um, he'd been notified of the case and provisionally suspended. So he requested the opening and analysis of the B sample, which confirmed the result as the A sample. So he's gone past the A and B sample testing, and he has appealed the suspension.
Mm, mate, just
Sounds like he fucked up his microdosing, doesn't it?
again, look, I just lawyer and me, this is a provisional suspension, right? So we, take everything we're about to discuss obviously has to fall under that framework. Uh, when I saw this, I had like really a very physical reaction to this of just like it's weird, right? Because there's these conflicted emotions. Firstly, like how fucking good is it they've caught someone?
Mm,
But secondly, it was just this like when you don't want to be right about something and then it turns out you're right about something. And this
yeah.
isn't I'm not saying that it's specifically about Thomas, although fucking come on. It's more just that, we've been ever since the Colin thing came out, like it's just been like what else is there? Are they going to catch more people? We've heard so many, I've had pros reach out. We've heard so many stories. And to be again going through this again, it is just a bit like, I don't know, disappointing, right? Like I said, it's great that they've
Yeah.
caught him, and I think we need to catch more of these athletes. But it is like, I think you cannot, anybody who's listening right now, it's this is not going to be the last time we hear of it. This is something I think we're going to start seeing more and more of, unfortunately. And it's disappointing, mate. Like it really is. And again, maybe it's ignorant to think that
Yeah.
triathlon was a relatively clean sport, but when the sport you love suddenly starts to get dragged through the mud like this, yeah, it's pretty depressing.
Yeah, it's a crying shame. But on the upside, like you say, it is very positive to maybe use a different word. It's very uh, confident. It gives you confidence that they actually
Encouraging,
it's encouraging that they caught this guy and that his A sample and his B sample both returned the same readings and that he is going to be suspended and face the weight of the sanction for this. Um, and also, I think there's something to be said about the fact that his performance was so abnormal that it gives me confidence that maybe it's not as widespread as it has been in other sports in the past. Because
Mm.
if he's doping using whatever this fucking stuff does, I think it's a
Eggs,
testosterone.
eggs, mate. It's eggs.
Yes, X. I think it basically is like going back to using testosterone back in the 80s. Increases your testosterone levels, which is pretty old school way of doping. But if he's doing that and getting this sort of really astounding result, which is head and shoulders above running a marathon quicker than probably the best male marathon runner in the sport, is perhaps testament to the rest of the field not going down that road.
You see, yeah, I agree. But again, I suppose what happened last time, because the Colin situation, like the way that Colin, firstly, just want to give him weirdly, a little shout out, just because I saw one of our patrons, I think it actually was Tom, who put up the comment on the post saying, Colin Chartier, if you're looking for another person to work in real estate with you, there's somebody south of the border who, might need a job. And he did reply and said, what did he say? Dirty athletes clean
Dirty
houses.
athletes clean houses.
Well played. Like that was actually
Yeah.
a very actually funny response from a guy who's fuck off and never come back to our sport. But I think that performance obviously was quite sort of exceptional. And same thing ever since then, I have been well, every time there's a really outlier performance, the rumblings start, and it does get a bit exhausting. And as much as you're right that this was a exceptional thing, so it's pretty obvious. I still can't help but now look at all these other exceptional performances, of which there have been many in the last 2 years in
Yeah,
particular.
agreed. Agreed. And also you know, the world we live in now, it ain't a landscape where you can like there are tests for obvious doping, but there are also, I mean, I don't know a huge amount about doping, but I've read enough to know that, microdosing exists and there are ways to make it so that you come up clean at the right times.
Yeah.
So, but in this instance, he wasn't microdosing EPO, was he? He was using some testosterone stimulator. So,
I think,
fuck knows.
I mean, like, as I've sort of alluded to, and we've had a lot of people tell us who they do or don't think is doping, the reasons why, the things they've seen, the things they've heard. And I very much am of the belief, like, you said it to me, right? Like, it's not your job. You can spend all your time focusing on the negativity and sort of letting it consume you, or you can let the authorities do what they do. And I think for myself, at least, that approach has kind of been what I do. It's like, you know what? I'm just gonna assume until they're caught, I'm gonna assume they're clean. But I certainly do keep note or pay attention to the names that I hear. And like it is, like I said, I do start to feel like I am going to be going down that rabbit hole again of like there have been some performances over the last years that have happened that have left me physically depressed, right? Like, when you look at it, you look at the context, you look at the things you've heard about people, you see this thing happen and you go like, fucking hell, the bad guys are winning, I suppose. I just worry that I'm going to start spiraling down that way a little bit because like I said, there were some results last year, particularly not this year so much, where I have sort of relaxed a bit. But like I would have a physical reaction to how disappointed I was in the, if this person is doing what people are saying they're doing and they're getting away with it, this is terrible. Um, but I mean, just fuck off and never come back. Like we need to bring
You
in
want to
life
hear what he
life
said?
bans.
Do you want to hear the statement he
I
put
mean,
out?
not particularly, but I know that
We
we
hear
we, we
a
need
little, a
to.
little bit of it.
Now, like we
Yeah.
should again for people, because again, I don't know if everybody has heard this or read this, but it is important to provide the context. So please go for it.
I am Tomas Rodriguez, a professional athlete and ambassador of clean sport, and I want to share an important update regarding my recent positive result in anti-doping test. During a test conducted on April 27th, 2024, I tested positive for a substance clomiphene. The process is still ongoing, and I'll communicate any further updates as soon as I have more information. I want to be clear and transparent about the situation and explain that clomiphene was detected in minimal levels in the sample. I want to emphasize that these levels are extremely low and not consistent with the intentional use of a substance to enhance performance. The presence of clomiphene in my system is due to the inadvertent consumption of contaminated foods, specifically eggs and chicken, which are abundant in my diet. These foods contain traces of the substance, leading to an unexpected positive result. Additionally, I want to point out that my biological passport, which monitors hormone levels over time, shows completely normal ranges with no signs of doping. These records are regularly reviewed and validated by independent experts. They confirm there has been no abnormal variation that could indicate the use of prohibited substances. I've dedicated my life to sports and have always competed with integrity and honesty. I'd never betray my principles or resort to the use of illegal substances to enhance my performance. This incident is an unfortunate reminder of the importance of quality controls in the food supply chain and the need to remain vigilant against inadvertent contamination. Despite the unintentional nature of the positive result, I've received a provisional suspension. During this period, while the process is resolved, I commit to continuing to work on my recovery and educating other athletes about the risk of food contamination. I'm deeply dismayed by the positive result. I've never taken prohibited substances and would never do so. I appreciate the support of my fans, my team, and my family during this difficult time. I'll continue to fight for clean sport and return stronger, hoping to prevent other athletes from facing similar situations.
You know,
He's gone for the Contador route, hasn't he? The
oh,
contaminated steak.
do you know who often comes out and says that they didn't do it? Guilty people. Guilty people. Like this is a show we've seen many times before. Like this isn't. It's not like this is the first. Like literally, you said it. The second I saw this, I was like, it's Contador. This is exactly
Yeah.
what we like.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a joke, I can't even remember who I was chatting with, but I said, I wonder what happens if I put it into ChatGPT as a pro athlete who tests positive for whatever it's called. Like, what excuses could I use? And literally, the second item was like, blame it on contaminated food. And it's look, as I said, it's provisional, but A and B samples both tested positive. It's
Yeah, and look, as much as the contaminated food excuse exists, and look, there is a percentage chance that that is true. We can't just write it off entirely. But even if it is true, the stuff was still in your system, you know? And that tiny percentage chance that there's truth in that, that if you could prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt, then possibly you might win back some support in the court of public opinion. But what you're not going to do is remove the fact that you have been caught with that substance in your system at a particular time when your performances was better than it's ever been at a race, and therefore you're going to be sanctioned, mate.
yeah,
It's up to the
exactly.
athlete to understand what is and isn't going in and out of their body.
Well, that's what I've always understood, right? It's like that's why athletes need to be really careful about the supplements they use.
Supplements, yeah, all
I
that
mean,
shit.
myself,
And
I'm
even
not.
if you go to the
I'm
doctors and you get prescribed something, you have to have a conversation with your doctor, right? What's in this? Is it on the ban list? And if it is, you have to get a therapeutic, therapeutic
use
exemption,
exemption.
use
Yeah,
exemption if you can. You know, these things are in place for a reason.
exactly. And I mean, yeah, it really feels like a bad cop out to me, right? Like chick.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, look, even if it's fucking, I don't know, if it happened to me, and I knew 100% that I'd eaten something that had created a positive test, as the words were coming out of my mouth, I wouldn't believe them myself
Mm,
because it's such a staid old excuse back from the dark days of cycling.
I know. Okay, here's how I see it, right? This is the crux of it all. I think the real issue that old mate Rodriguez has here is if Tomas Rodriguez Hernandez had just had a similar season to how he had last year, where he might have, I don't know, won an occasional 70.3 or a few top tens, like and then this happened, we'd be a bit outraged, but it'd be like, okay, who cares? It's the adverse finding, whether coincidental or real, partnered with the best performance of his career that beat Patrick Lang. And you said, like, those two together make it
Yeah.
extremely difficult to go, oh, it must be a coincidence. Like
At the race of his fucking life,
exactly
where he
that it
outran
yeah,
the
exactly.
greatest, in my opinion, male marathon runner we've seen in the sport. He outran him like he was standing still. And then it just so happens that coincidentally happens to be the weekend where he downed a fucking raw egg milkshake like he's Rocky Balboa. And it came up full of chloroform or whatever it's called.
You know, the other thing as well is always when these things come up, and I remember being quite incensed by it when Colin was going through the thing where there'd be all these people that would come out and defend him and say, look, he's a person, and yes, he's made a mistake, and don't judge him, and to see, it's been very interesting this time, like the second big case in like a year, where it's the people that are coming out, and again, I'm not going to name names or anything, but I saw one comment on the account which was like, same thing, like, he's a person, we shouldn't be so harsh, some people make mistakes, and just because they dope doesn't mean they're a bad person or stuff. And I remember, and I was like, well, my spider senses are tingling a little bit. Like, why would this amateur be so defensive of what they're doing? So I clicked on their profile, and this amateur, uh not a young person, but had an extremely fast, like almost sub 8 PB for an Ironman. And then again, my brain goes, oh, I understand why they're now defending this person so badly, because they're probably doing it as well. And like, that's the sort of spiral that I talk about, right? Once this stuff happens, those dominoes start to fall, and you start to go, any performance that is exceptional, like this, this guy, I could be judging him completely wrong. He's actually worked his ass off, done the thing, has an incredible result, and actually just believes in the good of all people or something. But you suddenly start to look for these patterns and trends, and it does impact
Yeah, I
your.
mean, I agree to a certain extent. I mean, online hate is fucking hell. It's for the authorities to deal with, and it's for the appropriate sanctions to be brought down. But having said that, this whole like instant jumping by some people to be like, oh no, no, they're a person. You can't say anything or do anything. You got to protect them and look after them because everyone makes a mistake. Yeah, but also actions have consequences, and you
Mm.
can't. That's not a barrier to punishment or sanctioning or for your mistakes to carry the weight of the consequences that they deserve.
Do you think the reaction from the pro triathlon community has been very different this time to when it was Colin?
Has it?
What
I think it's been just as
I don't.
negative both
It's
times.
negative. I just don't think there's the same weight of opinion. Like last time, every pro almost jumped on the bandwagon of having a bit of a crack. Whereas this one, I've not, like, we haven't had. I just don't think we've had as big a reaction. Like, this whole thing
Do you
doesn't
think
seem to,
do you
like.
think because the Colin one kind of came out of the blue, whereas this was more of a there was a general sense from a lot of people for ever since that performance took place that this was probably going to come.
Yeah, I think
So it
that's
was
what it
more of a
is.
shrug of the shoulders of like, ah, it's happened.
Exactly. Well, that's kind of, I guess, where I was getting at, is I think that there's a like, the Colin thing was a bit of a shock, right? Like, I know I was
Yeah,
shocked when
it
it came
was,
out.
yeah.
I
It
wasn't
was.
shocked when this one came out. Like, I feel like it is maybe a slight desensitization. Uh, but the other thing is, and again, I don't really like to say I'm giving Colin credit for anything, but I will say at least he copped it on the chin, came out, I was like, yep, I did it. I'm done. See you later. Rather than this, like, the thought that this guy's going to serve his ban and then come back. Like, don't. We don't want you. Like,
No,
you have no
no.
place here.
I
And
wonder how long that ban's going to be as
it should
well.
it should be full. They need to bring in live bands, mate. I'm happy to stand on this hill, and I think a lot of people will probably agree with me here. There needs to be serious repercussions, like a lifetime ban. And yeah, it's I don't want him back. I don't want this guy back in this. Like, there's been too many examples in the past of people who've tested positive come back. Like, just go away. Just go away. Don't come back. We don't need this in a sport. And I want all the other athletes out there who are even thinking about it or maybe are doing it to actually understand the very real risk and consequence of doing this. Because you said it right. There's a difference between, being free of, you can say what you like or whatever, but understand there's consequences if you actually, they need to understand the seriousness of the consequences that are, you will not ever compete in any sport again. I think while the Lance Armstrong thing is harsh, fucking hell, it'd be a good deterrent, right? You're banned from any form of
Yeah.
competition ever.
And the implications aren't just the single day of racing. It's not just that day
Mm.
that those implications end. Because, I was speaking to an athlete friend of ours who is a pro on the circuit. I won't name names because I haven't got their permission to. But they were telling me that someone they're close to missed out on a Kona slot at Texas, you know, very, very close, maybe one place. And then their entire season changes because they spend the rest of the season racing to try and get that slot they would have got. Now, whether they get that slot or not is one thing, but also the accumulated fatigue in chasing that slot means that their performance when they do get to Kona, if they do get to Kona, is going to be an entirely different type of performance than the one they would have got had they got the slot at Texas early in the year, being able to spend 6 months refining how they're going to perform on the Big Island. The implications on people are deep. So this wave of sympathy, I'm not sure there's a wave of sympathy, but the people out there fighting, think about the other people this affects, the other athletes, and the implications it has on their season
But
and maybe their career. Because let's say you miss out on a Kona slot by one, and then you go and do two extra Ironmans to try and qualify. Imagine if that does something to your body and you injure yourself, or you have a stress fracture or something that takes you out for a season or something.
mate, that's exactly right. Like let's hypothetically use Patrick Lang as an example. As you've said many, many times, the best runner in the sport has trained a certain way to be the best runner in the sport. Podiums in world champs last year, and he's nearly wins the thing. Goes to Texas and gets outrun by this guy that not never heard of before. Does that start to make him question things and change the way he does things? And then, like, to be honest, we've not seen Patrick have the best season this year. He pulled out a Roth, and there's like what the risk then that he's like, shit, I need to change the way I train. If this is how far the game has moved, and I thought I was good and I was already doing almost everything I could to be as fast as I am, you then might start to take these risks that, as you say, can lead to sickness, injury. I mean, even the financial stuff, right? Podium bonuses. Look,
Yeah.
even if they change the podium, give Patrick Lang the win, that was months ago. He misses out on that moment. He misses out on the PR. He misses out on like. There's so much stuff that, as a result of these things, that you
Oh, it
can.
ripples down, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
like throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples, they just keep on going. Like you say, the media around taking a victory has a financial value because not only does it get your name out there, but it gets your sponsor's name out there. That again, it comes with a financial value. Those bonuses that he would have got for winning the race, I mean, he'll probably still get them from his sponsors, but it's a delay thing, isn't it? Everything's delayed.
Mm. Look,
It's no fucking good. I've got no
I'm
time for
just,
it.
I'm just flat about it, right? Like I don't. When Colin happened, I was really angry, and I'm not angry about this. I'm not mad. I'm disappointed. Like I'm not surprised, I suppose, is the thing. And like I said, I don't think this is going to be the last we hear. I mean, look, to be honest, I hope it's not the last. Okay, I do. I hope it's the last we hear of it, but I also hope it isn't because I still believe, I'm still fairly confident that there are other athletes out there who are doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. And I hope they get caught, but equal parts, I hope it's not that they don't get caught. I hope that there's no one to catch. So
Yeah.
it's a very weird, I guess, place to sort of sit with it.
I mean,
But
it's fairly simple, isn't it? I just hope that anybody that ever deserves to get caught gets caught.
yeah.
And that's what it boils down to.
Exactly. Well, look, you know what, James. You might be able to get increase your chicken and eggs in your diet and Australian beef and stuff, and suddenly break it, the best run. But most of us listening probably wouldn't do that. Instead, what they do is they tend to rely on training hard and fueling themselves properly. So if you want to fuel yourself properly, the best place to go is Training House or traininghouseshop.com, who's this week's sponsor, who have a whole range of products that you can take that will improve your electrolytes, carbohydrate drinks, all the things you need to perform at your best that don't involve chicken and eggs, man, and
Yeah.
probably well shouldn't make you piss positive ever. So it's a weird. Maybe I don't know
Yeah,
how they'll
totally.
feel about us linking these two
And
together.
they'll have all the nutrients and all the ingredients listed so you can go through them with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that you're never inadvertently crossing any lines when it comes to banned substances, because that's probably one of the most important things we can all do, isn't it? Is fuel ourselves properly and legally and understand where we get our nutrition from and why we take what we take and why we consume what we consume and drink what we drink when we do it. And companies like Training House shop.com allow us to do that, mate. And I love
Exactly.
it.
Yeah. And like I said, I've said before, and I'll say again, the thing I really like about Training House is you can go there if you are looking to try a few different things. You don't have to commit to, a whole box of one gel. You can, order individuals or twos or threes. You could literally order one of every gel on their website, try them all, work out the thing that works for you, or decide maybe gel's not for me. I want to focus more on electrolytes. Whatever you want to do to sort of make it work, you can go try it. They'll ship it to you. Yeah, again, I really like this approach. We spoke a lot about how we used it in Europe. I had an order waiting for me when I got home again, so I'm always super well stocked. But yeah, if you head to traininghouseshop.com, get yourself some nutrition or some what do you call it, accessories. Support a brand that is supporting us. That's a great way you can support the podcast. So on with the show, James.
On ever. So, what are we going to talk about now? Should we have a chat about the mixed team relay?
I think we should talk about the mixed team relay.
What a fucking race this was, eh?
God almighty, mate. Talk about taking the script and tearing it up, because
Yeah,
this did
totally.
not
It
go.
was, I mean, everyone I spoke to, including myself, when I have little quiet conversations with myself, mate, was saying that the French were pretty much nailed on favorites for this.
Mm.
Um, and I think skipping ahead, Cassandra Beaugrand's performance in the final leg kind of was testament to that. If she'd been in the right place, they would have been right up there. But yeah, unfortunately, on that first leg, we saw um, Hayden Wild doing what he normally does, which is bring the group back up. And then he crashed on the dead turn, didn't he? And he brought down Pierre Lecourt with him.
Yeah, and to be honest, looking at the crash, like it didn't look that bad when you watch it just looks like he sort of slipped out or whatever, and then Pierre did sort of ride over him. But when I saw the photos of Hayden, making the change, he was fucked, mate. Like he had
Yeah,
bloody
he was
face.
fucked.
I really didn't realize how bad it must have been. So, I mean, firstly, just absolute credit to Hayden for pushing through and getting it done after what must have been pretty rough. But yeah, mate, I would have literally bet all of my money on France winning this mixed team relay. Like as confident as I was about Alex and Cassandra in the individuals. I mean, I think we've been saying combined on this podcast for years, nobody's beaten the French. We were wrong. Like again, and it's just in a weird way, but it's funny because what we ended up getting was a absolute firecracker of a race that I don't actually think we would have got had the French stayed in it.
No, I don't think we would we? Because what we got was it ebbed and flowed, my opinion, on what was going to happen as the race went on. Um, I mean, yeah, the crash wasn't that bad. Hayden took a bit of a blow to the face. He was covered in blood. Pierre Lecourt dropped his chain, which then took him
Compounded
even
it.
more time to get going again. And he was basically on a solo mission. And we saw that first group coming in, and it was looking very much like Team GB were in control of that race for a while. And I think that my performance of the day goes to Sam Dickinson, mate, if I'm
Oh, mate,
honest.
Jesus, I have been maybe not so much publicly, but privately quite critical of Sam Dickinson in the past. I mean, I didn't think he should have been picked for the team. I thought that it should have been Brownlee. I was not very impressed with what he did in the individual race, and I didn't understand all the credit he was getting for helping Alex the way that he did because I didn't really see him do much. And fuck again, mate, I would actually say him and Taylor Nibb had the performances today. He impressed me so much. such a gutsy performance from a guy who had a lot of weight on his shoulders, right? Like he to me was the weak link in that British team, and he was their strength in a lot of ways. Like he really, to me at least, he set Beth Potter up in the best possible way.
Yeah, without question. We had Alex Yee on the first leg, then Georgia Taylor Brown was away on the bike for a substantial amount of the second leg and the run, but she started to lose that lead a little bit as it came into her handover to Sam. She handed over to Sam, and Sam ran at the front of that race. And then when it came down to the run, he really did start to extend that lead, and he had a little burst, and it was just enough, really, to set Beth Potter up, like you say, in the best possible position she could be in, depending on her how she was feeling in her form, to get that victory. And that final leg, mate, was
Wow.
fucking brilliant.
Wow. Look, let's focus on Beth Potter a little bit because I'll be honest, I was surprised that Beth Potter got the pick. Again, obviously I'm Kate Woff's manager, so take what I say with a grain of salt if you like. But I always thought that the mix team really would have been Georgia and Kate because while Beth is an exceptional athlete, I've never seen her really do well at that super sprint distance, super try and things like that. And I also assumed like she really dug deep to get that bronze medal
Yeah,
the
she
week
really
before.
did. She
So
really
I
did.
I was surprised that she got the start. And look, I don't know. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but I do sort of look at that race. And I mean, even the comments we've made about her recently, where that run, I mean, I think I heard Trevor saying, she's the best runner in the field. I disagree. Like she used to be the best runner in the field. She's not the strongest runner in the field at the moment because she's sort of softened that run to improve the swim and the bike. But yeah, I mean, we ended up, as you said, seeing one of the truly wonderful performances in that final leg, and that was from Taylor Knibb, who I actually think Germany should give a gold medal to as well, because she basically, in my mind, I mean, Laura Lindemann was exceptional, but I don't think Laura Lindemann would have been in a position to beat Beth Potter if Taylor Knibb hadn't have had that bike ride and that run. Again, Taylor Knibb, I wouldn't have picked for the mixed team relay. I probably would have gone. I assumed that Kirsten Castle was picked for the relay. Again, I was wrong. Taylor Knibb had. I want to see her race Super League, mate. Like I understand she wants to go super super long now, but man, I'd love to see her do a season of Super League if that's the sort of impact that she has on a race because it was exceptional.
Yeah, so coming out of the water, the gap between Potter and Lindemann was 7 seconds. But then Taylor Knibb caught up with Lindemann on the bike and pretty much carried her up
Definitely
to
did.
Beth. Yeah.
did
Um,
did pull her up like 100%, mate. Like there's the footage of it happening is it watching what Beth did on the bike to Beth reminded me of what Alex did to Hayden on the run in the individual. It was that significant and a catch and then overtake. It was exceptional, man. It was really something. And yeah, it
yeah.
set up
So
for that run.
by the end of that bike, Nib and Lindemann had caught Potter and overhauled her slightly. So coming into T2, Nib and Potter were in the lead. Um, but Potter had a really good transition and got out marginally in front on the run. Um, it was like a minute back to the rest, I think.
Mm.
But France at this point were up to fourth with Cassandra Brogard having an absolute fucking blinder. But those three essentially ran together
Well,
on the
Lindemann
run.
Lindemann dropped off a little bit at the start. Like she came out of transition with a fair bit of a gap that I wouldn't have anticipated her making up that gap. And then I think the camera cut away to somebody else and then came back and she was there. I was like, oh shit, this
Yeah,
is
and by
this
the
is
end of
it.
that first lap on the run, it was Potter that was trailing, and that gap started to grow, didn't it, between them? Um, and it looked like they'd completely dropped Potter at this point. It looked
Yeah.
like she was out the game completely, and it was going to be a race for one and two between those two. But there was just this surge from Beth towards the end, which brought her back into contention. And we essentially had a three-way sprint going down to that finishing line with Lindemann far enough ahead to look like she was comfortably going to win it. But having seen what we've seen over the last few weeks, specifically with Alex and Hayden, my brain wasn't willing to turn that off, that chance that she might just capitulate and the gold might go to either Potter or Nib, who were chasing hard.
Yeah. Like I have enjoyed all three of the triathlon events so much at these Olympics, and to have it, I guess, capped off by that performance, that race, that finish, the drama, the whole thing was just was so good. Like really, I loved it, mate. I don't have like I don't know what else there's to say. It was fantastic, right? And
No.
to see
Lindemann got
Germany,
the Lindemann got the gold medal, and then initially, because they used the video capture shot, it looked like Potter had got silver, and they gave Nib bronze, and then that was reverted. It must have been 3, 4 minutes later. They came out and said actually, Nib got her the part of the body that they take the timing from
the
across
chest, I
the
think.
line. Yeah, I think it's like the sternum, isn't it?
Mm.
They take across the line um, before Potter, but it was marginal. I mean, it was so marginal. The difference between bronze and silver was barely anything.
I think to be honest, even that like the difference between gold, silver, and bronze was like a second, right? Like
Yeah.
so tight. And again, just testament to some of these incredible finishes we have at the Olympics. Like so many of these Olympic races, individual or the relays. Not the relay last year, not the last time, not so much, but like we have had so many exceptional finishes at the Olympics. And like I said, Germany, I'm so actually like it's fantastic to see Germany get it, four great athletes to get that mixed team relay. I like the fact that it
You know
isn't,
what I wish though?
what's that?
I fucking wish Jonas Schomburg was in that team.
Yeah, I wish that the
I
great
fucking
man.
love it. I'd be
Oh
like, he's
mate,
got a gold medal.
he would have. I love the thought that he's the one that goes out. If it had have been the other way, where the men were the anchor and Jonas has time to shine, where he goes flying out of T1, and because it's only 1.8K, he actually holds on.
I was on, yeah.
It would
Yeah.
have been, it would have been amazing. But yeah, look, France, Cassandra did so well to get them, run through the fields, and get that
Made
fourth
it
place.
fairly evident that if all things had been level, then they were the team to beat because that performance to go from basically the back of the pack all the way through up to fourth was amazing. Team GB, I think, really pretty much did exactly what we thought they were going to do. I could see a podium from that team, but I wasn't sure if it was going to be a gold medal. And I think where they finished is a good representation of how strong they are right now. And I think what the US have achieved, what specifically what Taylor Knibb has achieved here, is, last episode we were talking about whether what she the sort of wave of impressiveness she came into this Olympics with, was it a bit of a damp squib come the end with the TT crashes and not racing the cycle road race and then not having a very good performance in the individual race. And I think this performance in the mixed team relay has entirely put all that to bed and rescued her Olympics
No, it
in
certainly
every
has.
way.
Just on Nib, I mean, obviously, as our listeners know, I am the number one cycling fan in the world. You are a close second, but I do like to defer to give you your moment to shine. So Taylor Nib opted out of the road race, and they brought
Uh-huh.
in a replacement cyclist who went on to actually win the gold medal in the road race. Do you think,
Very impressively as well.
very impressively, do you think that if Taylor had have ended up doing the road race, like based, I guess, on that and how it, like, do you think things maybe would have gone different to what you anticipated, or do you think she wouldn't have been a factor?
She wouldn't have been a factor.
Okay.
You don't turn up to your first ever road race and it be the Olympics and be a factor. It's not a thing. Talking about that women's road race, um, when the American attacked, I can't remember her name off the top of my head for some reason, Faulkner or something.
I
Um,
mean,
when
I
she
obviously know.
attacked,
I don't want to make you look bad. So
I couldn't believe that Voss and the other didn't follow her. They let her ride away. And it was just the most astounding moment. It was I mean, we've seen it before in cycling many times where they're too busy looking at each other. But in the Olympics, when a gold medal's on the line, I would have thought you follow every wheel that's going, irrespective of who it is, and then you sort it out on the line. But it was a strange finish, but she did very well.
back to the mixed team relay, and I guess to sort of segue onto the next thing, one of the things that was missing in the mixed team relay was the Belgian team. They did not compete because they had some health problems with some of their athletes. The main athlete being Claire Michel. You're good friends with Claire. Mate, tell us about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Belgium initially withdrew, there was just a general covering thing that one of their athletes was sick, and then there were lots of news reports that came out, the BBC and various other entities, saying that she'd been impacted by E. coli and been hospitalized for 4 days after she'd swum in the River Seine. Now, technically, she was ill after she'd swum in the River Seine, so that headline is true. But whether it's actually the cause of it, nobody knows. And she provided an update. I spoke to her briefly last week and just sort of made sure she was okay. Um, but she's provided a public update now, which I'll read that out, where she said there's been a lot of conflicting information in the media lately. So I just wanted to clarify a few things. First of all, thanks to a great medical care from both Team Belgium medical team and the incredible volunteer doctors and nurses at the Polyclinic at the Olympic Village, I'm grateful to be doing better, and I returned home to Belgium today. Blood test shows that I contracted a virus, not E. coli, after 3 days of vomiting and diarrhea, which left me quite empty. On Sunday, I ended up needing more significant medical attention at the clinic. She was devastated not to compete in the Olympics. Um, and she said, lastly, while the whole team fully understood and supported our decision not to start the relay, my heart goes out to the first and foremost to my fellow Belgian hammers, Martin van Riel, Jelle Gaines, and Jolien Vermeulen, who also lost out on another chance to race. Belgium is a relatively small country and with a strong relay tradition across many sports. The Belgian Hammers was a project we started in Tokyo with the first ever triathlon mixed team relay, where we rallied to fifth place finish. So, also after difficult circumstances, we wanted nothing more than to improve on that performance to inspire the next generation. So, if I have one with for the future generations of the Belgian Hammers, it's not only that you will always fight until the end, but you'll also support each other to the end. This is something I can certainly take away from both my relay experiences here in Paris and Tokyo. So, yeah, it turns out, despite a lot of bandwagon jumping on, that she didn't have E. coli, she had a virus. Was that from the river? Was it not from the river? It can't be confirmed. Nobody knows. So a lot of look, swimming in a fucking highly polluted river that 1 minute is safe to swim and then a few hours later isn't safe to swim and the next day is safe to swim again and the next day after isn't safe to swim again probably ain't fucking advisable anyway. That's just moving water happening there. And a lot of that moving water is bad, and some of that moving water is good. And it depends when you dip your dipstick in. But you can't prove that it was the river that made these people sick. There are a lot of people sick. Who knows whether it was the river? I'm not going to swim in that fucking river ever. I took my bike down to a tech here in the Mont d'Or just outside of Lyon earlier today because I was having some trouble with my front derailleur. And we were chatting away, spoke a bit of English, and we said I'd been to Paris to watch the Olympics. And the first thing he said was, "I hope you didn't get in the Seine."
Think about the poor marathon swimmers that did 10 kilometers in it yesterday.
I
10,
know,
10 kilometers,
I know.
2 hours.
Yeah, yeah, it's not good. But we've also had Portuguese athlete Vasco Valasa saying he's suffering from pretty bad stomach flu after competing in the Olympics and having swum in the Seine. Now, on Thursday afternoon, he revealed that he'd not left the French capital in the best of physical conditions. On Instagram, he said, unfortunately, since Tuesday evening, I've developed symptoms consistent with a pretty bad stomach flu, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and stomach aches. It's not the way I wanted to leave Paris. Luckily, I'm getting all the help I need from the doctors and staff, and the symptoms will go away, but the three Olympic diplomas earned and Team Portugal will live forever, leaving Paris happy and proud to be part of the team. Now, as I said, we can't prove these things come to the river, but the more people that get sick with the same fucking thing, mate, you start to think, especially it's not hard to put two and two together when you've got a river that is predominantly unsafe to swim in and them saying well, the welfare of the athletes is what we care about most, so we might make it a duathlon. Oopsie daisy, it's not a duathlon, it's going to be the full triathlon. In the river you go, fuckers. Oh look, everyone's shitting themselves. Wonder how that happened.
I know that there's also, I think, reports that some of the Kiwis, including Hayden, had been unwell between the individual and the mixed team relay. So,
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah. Anyway, look, I think it's worth just sort of trying to provide a bit of clarity because there has been, it's been disappointing to see this is what triathlon gets so much mainstream attention
Yeah,
for.
man. That's the thing, is, and that's what I think I said this last episode. It's like, for fuck's sake, we've just seen two of the best individual races and one of the best mixed team relays I've ever seen. And all people are talking about, and justifiably so, is the fact that everyone had to swim in a shitty river.
Hmm.
Even to the point where I'm going to a local bike mechanic here in France and he's going, oh, fucking river. Bad, bad. Don't get in the river.
I think we need to come up with a business, mate, and we need to pitch that we need to go to the French government and go, listen, you wasted 1.4 billion. It didn't work. Give us a billion and we'll do it. And then
Give
me
us
and
a
you can
billion.
and then me and you can stand out there with like the pool cleaner, the nets on, the pool nets on the long pole, and we'll literally just stand next to the same and just scoop stuff out of it.
Mate, I know a lot of dodgy bastard contractors in the UK who could easily spend a billion, sorry, cleaning up the Seine.
Let's do it. Let's make this is there's clearly money to burn. It didn't work. Yeah, look again. It's once I still look at these games as a net positive in terms of the triathlon, like in a big way. But as you said last week, and I just want to emphasize, I think that there needs to be accountability. Uh, Something has to happen. Like I don't want people to forget about the risks that the athletes were sort of forced to take as a result of this. So that there definitely needs to be I don't know what's the triathlon equivalent of inquiry or something, but there needs to be some form of accountability for what has been a real black mark on an otherwise um, positive situation. So
Yeah, that's it. They can't just be allowed to bask in the reflected glory of races like this when they did their best to scupper it from the start. Years ago when this started, we've been saying it for fucking years. Wasn't a new thing.
exactly. Now the next thing, mate, is kind of the flow-on effect of the Olympics because one of the things that Christian Blumenfeld had come out and said, I guess there was a few question marks over was Christian wants to go and race Kona this year. Seems to now be officially done with short course race, and I'm guessing Christian, let us know, mate. But was his pathway to Kona? He'd said that he hoped to get the wild card call up like he did in 2021 for winning the race. That did not happen. So instead, he's going to go and be racing Frankfurt this weekend. But the other athlete that we've seen a lot of discussion this week about potential wildcard is Taylor Knibb, who did not win the women's race, has said that she would like a wildcard for Nice. And I know, at least in the WhatsApp group, there was fairly conflicting opinions as well about whether or not Taylor Knibb should have been given a wildcard for Nice. So I'd just like to know your thoughts, mate, about I guess first of the pathway, and we'll use it to talk about Frankfurt afterwards. But wildcards, you've seen what happened with Sam Laidlow with his weird ratification. Do you think that there's room to be giving athletes like Christian Blumenfeld and Taylor Knibb wildcards to race world championships?
My opinion is that I want to see the best athletes at the biggest races. But my overriding opinion is I would like a clear rule on how this is handled. And I want that rule to be universal across all athletes. If it is the case that Ironman can just give out wild cards and will be giving out wild cards to the athletes they want at those races, then make that the rule, make it clear, and make it obvious so that everyone knows. If it's the case that athletes just can't get wildcards willy-nilly, then everyone needs to ratify or qualify, then make that the rule. But what I don't particularly like, and I think undermines the value of qualifying for these races or ratifying for these races, is this kind of will they, won't they, up until the last minute. And I just think we need some very clear um statement or something from Iron Man about no, this is actually how we do things. This is why we do it, and this is what we're going to be doing going forward.
Do you think do you think we don't have that though? Like to give them credit, the only time I can think of them truly giving out wildcards was for Christian and Flora in 2021 as the Olympic champion. So that seems to have almost become a bit of an unofficial rule. But I mean, well, Christian is on the start list for Frankfurt this weekend, and I think they've even come out and said Taylor can ratify. She only has to ratify, I believe,
Yeah,
in Kalmar this weekend or next weekend as well. So I guess I
I
have
mean, if that's
Ironman's
where we are, that's where we are. I just
have they said anything? Like I wonder if it's actually a case of other people sort of starting it rather than I mean, I don't know. Like I don't see them giving her I don't think they should give wildcards to Taylor Knibb. I think that she should have to go and ratify like everybody else. It goes back to what we were talking about with the Tomas Rodriguez stuff, right? The flow-on effect of other competitors have had to do an Ironman this year. I don't think it's fair that others shouldn't have to. I mean,
yeah,
how did
agree.
Taylor?
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah, she got the start last year as 70.3 world champion, didn't she? That's how she got this. Okay, yeah,
in my opinion, you just everyone has to play by the same rules. That's the
right,
way it is.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
But
Do you think we'll
have
see
you
her in
seen
this?
I think there's a chance. I think what was that race that they said she was going to go and do? I can't remember which one it was.
Kalmar.
Yeah, she may well be there. It depends how quickly she can flick across from her short course form to a long course form. But she doesn't seem to have struggled with that in the past. Eh?
Never. And
No.
then
Have you seen the start list for Frankfurt?
I literally just pulled it up on my phone right now
It's
to have a
deep,
look.
deep, mate. It's
Hey,
deep.
it's a fucking start list.
There's loads of people on here. What we got? Patrick Lang, Christian Blumenfeld, Matt Hansen, Jackson Laundry, Robert Wiliwiecki. Who else we got? Clement Mignon,
Trevor Foley,
Trevor
who
Foley,
won Lake Placid in
Braden
commanding fashion.
Curry, Christian Hogenhaag, Bradley Weiss. Who else?
Gregory
Cameron Worth.
Barnaby,
Who else we got? Max Newman.
Max Newman. What?
Yeah.
I guess he
Mike
has to try to
Phillips.
qualify for. I guess he has to try to qualify for. Does he? Yeah. How does it work with podium finishes? Do they have the 5 year thing to ratify, or is
They,
it
I think they've got to qualify as well, eh?
Mike Phillips is there? I know Mike's doing it. Mitch Kibbe, mate. It's deep. It's a deep, deep, deep list.
Yeah, it's going to be an
There's
interesting race, this one, I think.
there's 88 pro men, mate. 88 pro men on this start list.
Well, I
Fucking
mean,
hell.
Frankfurt and Hamburg have always been popular races, haven't they? Because, they are classic German races, and they've always been the European Championships as well. So add in the fact that it's now part of the Ironman Pro Series, and you're gonna get a competitive field heading to those races because you always get a competitive field heading to those races anyway. But it's now amplified by coming along and putting the Ironman Pro Series points to it as well.
And is this the last chance to qualify for Kona? I think
Oof,
so.
now you're asking.
I think so. There's also Ironman Canada. So I take that back. When's Ironman Canada? Is that this weekend too? Doesn't have a date on it. How good's that? So good when they don't put it. I see Lionel Sanders is on the start list for Ironman Canada. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm assuming he's just put that entry in for the sake of it. Yeah, Frankfurt this weekend, one of the big ones. I'm very curious to see the Christian factor. It's no surprise to hear that, we are big Christian Blumenfeld fans. I am very keen to see Christian go all in on long distance. I hope he doesn't go to cycling. Like, I really hope he doesn't go to cycling. Um,
Jesus Christ.
do you think, again, knowing Christian, that the sort of athlete that Christian is this going to be a case of Christian just doing what he has to do to ratify, or is he going to go out there and try to absolutely smash this thing?
No, I think he will be sensible
Is he
at
able to do
this.
that? Is
Yeah, I
he?
think so. I think in this race we're probably going to see Patrick Lang be very strong. Um, I think yeah, I think I can see Patrick Lang taking this one out.
Mm. Again, I'm yeah, there's a few people I'm curious to see. I mean, we know that this is a slightly different race. The bike is slightly longer. It's not 100, it's like more like 185 kilometers, and it's traditionally quite a hot run. This is the race that sort of Sky Monch stormed onto the scene a few years ago when she had that impressive win. So yeah, I mean Max Newman, I'd be surprised based on what happened in London like 2 weeks ago, where he basically jogged the run. I would be surprised if he's there. Uh,
Yes.
Cam Worth's done a shit ton of racing, but again, he sort of seems to quite like that. Mike Phillips, again, Mike's one of my guys, absolute legend of a man. Had that really great performance in Cairns where he just missed out on second place. Uh, Again, I think we're just sort of seeing how he goes. I'm not going to put words in his mouth. Matty Hansen, the standout star of the Pro Series this year, I think could have a very,
Yeah,
very strong race. He is an exceptional runner, and he has done so well at races that I probably wouldn't have expected him to do so well this year. So yeah, mate, it's going to be a fascinating race. So you're picking Patrick Lang for the win?
I am.
I am going to, just because I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, I'm going to go Christian Blumenfeld, just because it's Christian, and you never know what Christian is going to do. One last thing, mate. I just want to very briefly touch on a race that I don't really want to talk about much because I don't have much to say about it. But Ironman Gdynia 70.3 happened over the weekend. I just want to shout out Max Stapley, again, one of my clients who had his first 70.3 win in commanding fashion. Max was literally led from the start of the swim all day. So Max, well done, mate. Absolutely legendary performance. I think that, yeah, we're going to, he's just gone from strength to strength this year. He's had a World Cup win, second place at the Arena Games World Champs, top 10 finish WTCS. Now he's won a 70.3. Yeah, well done, Maxi. Legendary performance, mate. So, mate, if people want to find out more about Talking Triathlon, what do they need to do?
Yeah, also, just to finish off, this weekend as well, Laura Zimmerman won Norseman, and so did Sebastian Norberg. So another race that happened. But yeah, if you want to find out more about Talking Triathlon, if you want to support the show, jump on at patreon.com/Talking Triathlon. If you want to follow Tim, he's at T414 on Instagram, and I'm at bale.james85 on Insta. Find us across all social networks at Talking Triathlon on Instagram, at Talk Triathlon on Twitter. If you join the Patreon group, you'll get access to the monthly bonus episodes, the social group, the WhatsApp group that we talk about all the time, and it's constantly alive with information. And a lot of the stuff that I find out about triathlon, I find out first in that group from someone who's posted it in there. So it's a really useful place to go and keep up to date with what's happening in the sport that we all love.
The other thing, based on your successful wearing of the white tri suit a couple of weeks ago, and again, a lot of the feedback we received, not that we're going to be making all white tri suits with James's face on it. I am considering making some sort of talking triathlon merch, whether it's going to be a hat, a shirt, maybe a cycling kit or something. Uh, if you guys are interested, let us know. We would probably just do it as a pre-order sort of thing. We would use Purpose Performance, who did that tri suit for you. I know you really like the quality, Jimbo.
It
But
was
yeah, let us know.
amazing. Genuinely, really amazing quality tri suit. Very
And
impressed.
we've been working on something behind the scenes with Team Purpose that they're going to be announcing, I think, around Kona time. So who knows? There could be something very exciting, not from a talking triathlon point of view, but from a people that like to go fast view. Again, YouTube guys, head to YouTube, give us your thoughts. Let us know what you thought about the mixed team relay. Let us know who you think is going to win Ironman Frankfurt. Let us know what you think should happen to Tomas Rodriguez Hernandez. We always appreciate the comments most of the time. Sometimes they piss me off a little bit, but Jimbo, it's been a pleasure, mate. We will be back next week to talk about triathlon once again. Until then, talk to you later.
Cheerio.